Working at Walmart should be simple, right? Stock shelves, help customers, go home. But when darkness falls and the aisles empty out, something sinister awakens. These are real stories from employees and shoppers who discovered that some things lurking in those fluorescent-lit corridors aren't quite human. What you're about to hear will make you think twice before entering a Walmart after midnight. Being a cashier gives you a front-row seat to the strangest human behavior, but working at Walmart for over 2 years, I thought I had seen it all. Unpleasant customers, shoplifters, even someone trying to pay with Monopoly money. But nothing prepared me for what happened one Wednesday night, and I still get chills thinking about it. It was a slow evening with few customers trickling in. The store had that eerie quiet you only get in the dead of night, just the hum of fluorescent lights and occasional intercom announcements. Most aisles sat completely deserted. I was counting down the minutes until my 11 p.m. shift ended, ready to clock out and head home. That's when she walked in. At first, nothing seemed particularly unusual. She was a middle-aged woman with dark hair hanging like a curtain over her face. She wore a faded gray coat that looked slightly too large, clutching a big black purse to her chest like it contained the world's most precious treasure. As she entered, she avoided my gaze entirely. Something felt off, maybe the slow, deliberate way she moved, picking each step carefully, or how the warmth seemed to drain from the air around her. She wandered through the store, weaving in and out of aisles. I watched her carefully. She didn't appear to be browsing normally, but she also didn't seem to have a specific destination. It was like she was searching for someone or something. After roughly 15 minutes, she finally arrived at my register. The items in her cart made my skin crawl. A single red candle, a box of salt, a roll of black thread, and an ancient, tattered-looking book without a title on its cover. It was the strangest collection I had ever seen. The book particularly caught my attention with its yellowed pages and cracked, faded leather binding that spoke of age and mystery. As I scanned her items, I couldn't help but glance at her face. It was pale, almost unnaturally so, with sunken eyes like she hadn't slept in days. Trying to break the uncomfortable silence, I said, "That's quite the collection." She didn't answer, just stared at me without blinking, her eyes completely vacant and hollow. The total came to exactly $13.13. I looked at her, partly expecting some reaction, but she simply pulled out an old, crumpled $20 bill from her purse. As I handed her the change, her icy fingers touched mine, sending a chill straight through my body. I forced a smile and said, "Have a good night." She didn't respond, just grabbed her bag and walked out without a single word. A few minutes later, as I prepared to close my register, I noticed something impossible. There was no receipt in the drawer for her purchase. Even though I always generate one for each customer, her receipt was simply missing. I checked the register's transaction history frantically, but there was no record of the sale whatsoever. It was as if she had never been there at all. Deeply unsettled, I called Tom, my manager, and explained what had happened. He frowned skeptically and suggested we review the security footage. What we saw on those cameras chilled me to my core. The footage showed me standing at my register, scanning items, moving my hands, even appearing to talk to someone. But there was no woman in front of me. No cart, no strange items, no customer at all. I was apparently conversing with empty air. Tom looked at me with genuine concern and asked, "How are you feeling? Maybe you're just exhausted?" But I knew what I had experienced. She had been there, I had touched her cold fingers, scanned her belongings, given her change. Yet the cameras told a different story entirely. For the rest of my shift, I couldn't shake the woman from my thoughts. When I finally clocked out and drove home, the night felt darker than usual. Every shadow seemed to shift just beyond my line of sight, and the street lamps appeared dimmer somehow. As soon as I got home, I collapsed into bed desperate for sleep, but the moment I closed my eyes, I saw her face, those lifeless eyes staring back at me. The next morning, I decided to do some research. The items she purchased felt too specific to be random. What I discovered terrified me. The red candle, the salt, the black thread, They were all components of an ancient ritual designed to summon spirits or create a portal to the afterlife. And the book she carried wasn't just any book, it was a grimoire, a collection of spells and dark incantations. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just some odd customer. She was something else entirely, something that shouldn't have been there at all. 2 nights later, she returned. I saw her again, standing near the entrance at the far end of the store as midnight approached. This time, her face was even paler, and she wasn't carrying a cart. My heart raced as I froze in place. She just stood there, motionless, staring directly at me with those dead, empty eyes. I turned to call for Tom, but when I looked back, she had vanished. I never saw her again after that night. I still don't know who or what she was. Maybe she existed only in my mind, a trick from working too many late shifts. Or maybe she was something far worse, something that shouldn't exist in our world. All I know is that I'll never forget those lifeless eyes and the way the room lost all its warmth when she was near. And sometimes, late at night when the store is silent and the aisles are empty, I swear I can still feel her watching me. Halloween decorations can be unsettling, but they're supposed to be fake, harmless props designed to create atmosphere. That's what I kept telling myself during my shift in October, when I was assigned to organize the seasonal department. Halloween was only 2 weeks away, and my manager, Mr. Preston, handed me a detailed checklist. "Alex, make sure the displays are perfect. You're essential to us," he said before walking away. I rolled my eyes quietly. Of course, boss. The seasonal section always felt strange to me. Maybe it was the decorations themselves, the plastic tombstones, rubber bats, and those motion-activated zombies that scream when you pass them. Or maybe it was the mannequins. This year, 3 life-size Halloween mannequins formed the centerpiece of our display, a witch, a vampire, and a scarecrow. They were posed together as if frozen mid-conversation. Unlike regular store mannequins, these had rough, almost childlike features painted on burlap-covered faces. I absolutely hated them. The first hour passed without incident. I busied myself arranging candy buckets and stringing artificial cobwebs across shelves. Occasionally, I'd glance at the mannequins, half expecting them to move. Naturally, they didn't. Around midnight, I heard a slight rustling sound behind me. When I turned around, I saw only rows of plastic skeletons and fake pumpkins, nothing unusual. My heart skipped a beat anyway. "Slow down," I warned myself. "It's probably just the air conditioning." But the sensation of being watched persisted and grew stronger. As the night wore on, the mannequins became increasingly unnerving. They seemed to be standing closer together than before, though I told myself I was imagining things. Then I went to grab some Halloween lights from the end of the aisle, and that's when I realized the scarecrow's head had turned. It was only a slight tilt, but enough to make me shiver. "Very funny," I called out, thinking one of my coworkers was playing a prank. "You can stop now." Nobody responded. I approached the scarecrow and adjusted its head back into place. Under my fingers, the burlap felt rough yet strangely warm, almost like real skin. Around 1 in the morning, my coworker Mia arrived to help. Even though Mia usually had a bright smile, she seemed uncomfortable tonight. She glanced around the aisle nervously and said, "Hey Alex, Mr. Preston sent me to check on you." I nodded, genuinely glad for the company. I'm getting a little creeped out by this section. We worked together for about an hour, rearranging shelves and organizing products. I occasionally caught her staring at the scarecrow, her face tight with anxiety. Eventually, I noticed something disturbing. The witch mannequin had completely vanished. Trying to keep my voice calm, I asked, "Hey Mia, did you move the witch?" She frowned. "No, why?" I pointed to the empty spot where the mannequin had been standing. We both searched the entire aisle, but the witch was nowhere to be found. "Maybe Mr. Preston moved it," Mia suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. I nodded, but deep down I knew something was very wrong. Shortly after, Mia went to the stockroom to get more supplies, leaving me alone again. The silence became overwhelming. When I glanced back at the display, I froze completely. The scarecrow had moved again. This time, its arms were extended outward, as if reaching for something or someone. Its painted eyes stared directly at me, and its head was tilted upward. My chest tightened painfully. I couldn't breathe or move a muscle. Suddenly, the intercom crackled to life. "Mia, please come to the stockroom." Mia to the stockroom. I grabbed my walkie-talkie with shaking hands. "Hi Mia, are you all right?" No answer came through the static. I decided to check the stockroom myself. As I walked toward the back of the store, passing through the electronics section, I saw it. The witch mannequin stood in the center of the aisle. It had been moved in position differently. Its hands were raised with claw-like fingers curled menacingly. My heart thundered in my ears as I slowly backed away. When I reached the stockroom, it was completely empty. Mia was nowhere to be found. I called her name repeatedly, but the only response was the gentle hum of overhead lights. My dread intensified with each passing second. Something was terribly wrong here. Hoping Mia had returned to the seasonal section, I made my way back. But when I arrived, both the vampire and scarecrow mannequins were standing next to each other. And there, clutched in the scarecrow's extended arms, was Mia's name tag. Pure panic struck me like lightning. I fumbled for my phone and tried calling Mr. Preston, but the call wouldn't connect. Desperate, I sprinted toward the front of the store, intending to leave and call for help from outside. But when I reached the exit, I froze in absolute horror. The witch mannequin was blocking the doors, its twisted face seeming to smile at me. Behind me, I heard the unmistakable sound of straw rustling. I turned around just in time to see the scarecrow lunging straight at me, its burlap arms outstretched. I don't remember much after that moment. When I woke up, it was morning and the store was filled with regular customers going about their shopping. Mia was never found. The police questioned everyone extensively, but nobody had any answers. That day, I quit immediately. I haven't returned to any Walmart since. But sometimes, late at night, I dream about those mannequins. And in my dreams, they're always watching me, especially after midnight, waiting patiently for me to return. There's something about Walmart parking lots that has always unnerved me. Maybe it's the dim lighting creating long shadows, the endless rows of parked cars, or the eerie quiet broken only by squeaky shopping cart wheels. I never gave it serious thought until one evening when my ordinary grocery run transformed into an experience I'll never forget. It was one of those cold autumn evenings when crispy leaves covered the streets and the air had a sharp bite. After working a late shift, I discovered my refrigerator was completely empty. With a resigned groan, I decided to visit the Walmart a few miles from my apartment. The store had a peculiar quietness that made you acutely aware of every sound and movement. I walked through the aisles collecting necessities, milk, bread, eggs, and a frozen pizza. I moved quickly through my shopping, not wanting to linger any longer than necessary. After paying, I headed outside. The cold hit me harder than expected as I stepped into the parking lot. My breath came out in small visible puffs, and the parked cars were covered in lengthy shadows cast by the streetlights. I had parked near the back of the lot. It wasn't the smartest decision since I had been in a hurry and didn't want to circle back for a closer spot. Halfway to my car, I noticed it, a dark, beaten sedan parked a few rows away. Even though its headlights were off, I could sense someone watching me from inside. I dismissed it as paranoia and kept walking, gripping my keys tightly. But as I approached my car, the sedan's engine suddenly roared to life. My heart skipped a beat. The vehicle moved forward slowly, its tires crunching over loose gravel. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I stood frozen, my legs feeling like lead. The car rolled to a stop just a few feet from me. The driver's window lowered slightly, and I glimpsed a hand waving at me. The wave wasn't friendly at all. It was deliberate, slow, and deeply wrong. I could only see the outline of a person behind the wheel. Their face remained hidden in shadow. "Hey!" I shouted, trying to sound braver than I felt. "What do you want?" No response came. The car just sat there idling, its exhaust clouding the cold air. I fumbled desperately with my keys and practically threw myself into my car, locking the doors with trembling hands. As I backed out of my parking space, the vehicle followed me. It wasn't subtle or hidden. When I moved, the car moved, maintaining a constant, menacing distance. At the parking lot exit, I turned onto the main road, and the sedan's headlights flicked on as it continued pursuing me. My stomach lurched painfully. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. Maybe it was nothing, maybe we were just heading in the same direction. But my logical brain didn't believe that for a second. I decided to test my theory. At the next intersection, I turned down a side street I didn't normally use. The sedan followed. My pulse quickened as I made another random turn, then another. The car stayed with me every single time. The driver wasn't rushing or attempting to pass me or tailgate. They simply hovered behind me, close enough to make it clear they were deliberately following. Finally, I couldn't handle it anymore. I turned into a gas station, hoping the lights and security cameras would discourage whoever was following me. The car slowed down as the driver waved at me one more time before disappearing down the street. I whispered, "That was so weird," and for a brief moment, I laughed shakily with relief. At least they were gone now. I waited several minutes before leaving the gas station and driving home. The streets were eerily still, with occasional street lamps casting strange pools of light on the deserted road. Tired but relieved to be almost home, I pulled into my apartment complex parking lot. It was nearly empty except for a few familiar vehicles belonging to my neighbors. But as soon as I stepped out of my car, my blood turned to ice. The identical dark sedan was parked at the far end of the lot, barely visible under a burned-out street lamp. Even though I couldn't see inside clearly, I knew it was the same car. The scratches on the door and the missing hubcap on the back tire confirmed it. My first instinct was to call the police, but what would I even say? That a car followed me and then parked near my building? They'd probably dismiss it as coincidence. I rushed inside, checking windows and locking the door securely behind me. As I sat on the couch trying to calm down, a strange feeling washed over me. I felt like I was being watched even inside my own home. I walked to the window and carefully peered through the blinds. My heart nearly stopped. A man was standing just outside my apartment under the street lamp. He was tall with unkempt hair and a thin build. His hands were stuffed in his coat pockets, and he was staring directly at my window. With shaking hands, I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. I explained the situation as calmly as possible, trying to keep my voice steady. "There's a man outside my apartment. He followed me home and now he's just standing there watching." The operator assured me an officer was on the way. Those minutes felt like hours. I watched the man through the blinds, too terrified to look away. He remained perfectly motionless and silent, just standing there staring. When the police arrived, their flashing lights illuminated the parking lot. But the man had vanished completely. The officers searched the area and took my statement, but without solid evidence, there was little they could do. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every creak of the apartment, every gust of wind made me jump nervously. The next morning, I discovered something that chilled me to the bone. There was a note on my windshield, written in sloppy handwriting. It simply said, "See you soon." A week later, I moved out of that apartment entirely. I still don't know who he was or what he wanted from me. But I can't shake the terror whenever I see a dark car in a parking lot, wondering if he's still out there somewhere, watching and waiting patiently for another chance. I've worked at Walmart on the night shift for over 2 years now. It's not glamorous work, but it pays the bills. Most nights are uneventful, just me, a few coworkers, and the strange quiet of a massive store after closing. But one particular night changed everything. Even writing about it now makes me shiver uncontrollably. It was a slow Tuesday in October, a few weeks before Halloween. The store had closed for the night, leaving only our small crew behind. That evening, I was responsible for restocking the home goods section, located far from the front registers and break room. Marcus, one of my coworkers, handled electronics, while Sandra covered the seasonal area near the back. Earlier, we had joked about how the night felt quiet, almost too quiet. Sandra laughed uneasily and said, "I swear this store is haunted. Something always feels strange after midnight." I dismissed her concerns immediately. I didn't believe in ghosts or paranormal activity. But I couldn't deny that Walmart had an odd atmosphere at night. The aisles stretched like endless tunnels, and the fluorescent lights created long, distorted shadows everywhere. Around 2 in the morning, while I was stacking boxes of towels, I heard the high-pitched screech of shopping cart wheels. Hearing carts at night wasn't unusual since cleaning staff sometimes moved them while mopping floors. But this sound was different. It was loud, almost metallic, and it echoed throughout the entire store like a scream. I paused, clutching the box in my hands tightly. "Is that you, Marcus?" I called out, my voice carrying a slight tremor. Silence answered me. After waiting a moment, I brushed it off. Maybe a faulty cart was being moved by the air conditioning, or perhaps it was just my imagination playing tricks. The screeching resumed a few minutes later, closer this time. I left the aisle and turned to look toward the front of the store near the registers. The sound seemed to originate from there. "Marcus? Sandra?" I shouted, raising my voice. Still no response. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to investigate. The shrieking grew louder as I approached, like nails scraping across a chalkboard. Every step made my heart race faster, and my palms began sweating profusely. When I turned the corner by the registers, I froze completely. A shopping cart sat in the center of the aisle. It was old and rusted, one we had thrown out years ago. Despite nobody touching it, one of its bent wheels was slowly rotating, producing that horrible sound. I stared at the cart, trying to process what I was seeing. That's when I noticed the floor beneath it. A dark, wet trail extended from the cart along the main aisle. I initially thought it was water, but as I stepped closer, a metallic, unpleasant odor filled my nostrils. It was blood. I nearly tripped over my own feet, staggering backward as my stomach churned violently. "What the hell?" I whispered under my breath. "Marcus. Sandra. Come here." I screamed, panic swelling in my chest. Footsteps echoed from the back of the store, and Marcus appeared, his expression irritated. "Dude, what's wrong with you?" With trembling hands, I pointed toward the cart and the blood trail. "Can you see that?" Marcus narrowed his eyes, his face shifting from annoyance to confusion. "What the hell?" Before Marcus could say anything more, the cart released a loud, deafening shriek. We both jumped back as the cart's wheels started moving by themselves. Rolling slowly at first, it quickly accelerated, heading directly toward the produce section. "Is this some kind of joke?" Marcus asked, his voice faltering. "Do I look like I'm kidding?" I shouted back. The cart had stopped now, near the fruit displays, but the blood trail had thickened, dripping onto the floor like a leaking faucet. Sandra appeared behind us, her face pale. "What's happening? Why are you both shouting?" I gestured frantically toward the cart. When Sandra saw the blood trail, her eyes grew wide with shock. "Is that blood?" she whispered. Before we could respond, the cart screamed again, louder than ever before. The sound was nearly unbearable, seeming to emanate from inside my skull. Sandra let out a scream as the cart began moving once more, spinning around erratically as if it were alive. It crashed into an apple display, sending fruit tumbling to the ground. "All right, this isn't funny anymore," Sandra shouted, backing away. "We didn't do this," I yelled back. The cart rolled toward the frozen food aisle with purpose. The three of us huddled together, watching in absolute dread. It suddenly stopped there, its wheels spinning wildly in place before falling silent. For a moment, there was complete quiet. Then the lights started flickering on and off. As the lights blinked, something strange happened to the cart. The metal frame seemed to warp and bend, almost melting. Then I saw it, a face. It was faint like a reflection in murky water, but it was definitely there. Pale, empty eyes stared out from the cart, and its mouth was twisted into a horrible, agonized scream. "What is that?" Marcus shouted, pulling both Sandra and me away. The face seemed to follow us with every flicker of the lights, its expression becoming more distorted and terrifying. "We need to leave this place now," Sandra's voice wavered. We turned and ran toward the back exit as fast as we could. The cart wasn't finished with us. It started rolling after us, releasing a piercing shriek that echoed through the store. It moved faster than it should have, faster than any cart being pushed normally. We stormed into the storage area and slammed the door shut behind us. Marcus jammed a metal rod into the door handle, trying desperately to hold it closed. For a moment, there was silence. Then the screeching began again on the other side, louder and more frantic. The cart slammed into the door repeatedly, each impact shaking the entire frame. "How do we get out of here?" Sandra's question was barely a whisper. I had no answer. My mind raced, trying to make sense of the impossible situation we found ourselves in. Finally, the door gave way with a terrible crash. The car rolled into the storage area, its wheels spinning frantically. It came to rest in the middle of the room, and that face remained visible, watching us with hollow, accusing eyes. Without thinking, I grabbed a fire extinguisher and hurled it at the cart with all my strength. The extinguisher hit with a loud clang, and the cart toppled over onto its side. Everything went silent for several seconds. Then the lights flickered one final time, and the cart let out one last excruciating shriek before collapsing into a pile of twisted, rusted metal. The face disappeared completely, and the blood trail vanished as if it had never existed. The next morning, we tried explaining everything to the store manager. They didn't believe us, of course. The cart was just a damaged piece of equipment, they said, and the blood trail was nowhere to be found. But I know what I saw that night. I experienced it firsthand. I still feel a shiver of terror whenever I pass a shopping cart. Sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear that same shrieking sound echoing in my head, and I can't help but wonder, was it truly over, or is the screaming cart still out there somewhere in the world, waiting for its next victim? Walmart is a strange place after hours. The endless rows of neatly arranged merchandise sit under harsh fluorescent lights that buzz constantly overhead. But at night, when the aisles are completely deserted, the store feels fundamentally different. Every sound, every shuffle of a box, every creak of a shelf feels amplified in the overwhelming silence. I work the night shift at a Walmart supercenter in a small, quiet town. My name is Ethan. It's not my dream job, but it pays the bills. My responsibility is stocking shelves and cleaning up after the last customer leaves when the store closes at 11 p.m. For nearly a year, my nights have been routine and predictable. Until last week. That's when I started noticing it. It was a typical Tuesday night. I'd been assigned to stock household products in aisle 13. It's a long hallway lined with shelves stacked high with everything from candles to picture frames to plates. Because it's far from the registers and break room, it's also one of the quieter, more isolated parts of the store. As I rolled my cart down the aisle, I had a strange feeling that someone was watching me. I dismissed it as simple paranoia. After all, only my boss Linda and two other employees, Maria and Greg, were inside the locked store with me. But I couldn't shake the sensation. That's when I noticed the darkness. Just beyond my line of sight, something darted across the far end of the aisle. It moved too quickly to be human. At first, I assumed Greg was playing one of his pranks. He had a habit of sneaking up on people to scare them during shifts. "Very funny, Greg," I called out, my voice echoing through the empty store. No answer came. I left my cart and walked to the end of the aisle, looking around the corner. The next aisle was empty. So was the one after that. The only sound in the entire store was the distant buzz of overhead lights. I dismissed the incident and returned to work, but the feeling of being watched only intensified as the night continued. The following evening, I was placed back in aisle 13. After my experience the previous night, I wasn't particularly excited about it, but I figured it was all in my head. About an hour into my shift, I heard it, a faint whisper. At first, I thought someone in the next aisle was speaking, either Maria or Linda. But listening more carefully, I realized the sound wasn't coming from nearby. It seemed to be coming from above me, so faint it was almost imperceptible. The whisper was low and raspy, an incomprehensible mumbling that sent chills down my spine. My eyes darted nervously between the shelves and the ceiling as I walked down the aisle, my heart pounding. Nothing appeared out of the ordinary. "Hey!" I called out, my voice shaking slightly. No response. I tried convincing myself it was either strange acoustics or the air conditioning, but deep down I knew that wasn't true. By the third night, I felt extremely tense. I hadn't told anyone about my experiences. Linda would probably tell me to just get over it, and Greg would only laugh. The whispers started almost immediately that night, just 20 minutes into my shift. I heard them again, low, guttural sounds that made my ears ring. This time I didn't call out. I grabbed my cart and tried focusing on my work, attempting to ignore them. But the whispers followed me, growing slightly louder with each passing minute. Then I saw it. At the far end of the aisle stood a figure, completely motionless. It was unnaturally tall with long, gangly limbs. Its face was shadowed, and its body was so dark it nearly blended into the weak light at the aisle's border. For several seconds, I stood frozen, struggling to process what I was seeing. "Who's there?" I finally managed to choke out. The figure didn't move. At least, I think it was staring at me even though it had no visible features, just a void of blackness that seemed to absorb all surrounding light. With my heart racing, I slowly backed away. I blinked once, and when my eyes opened, the figure had vanished completely. The following day, I couldn't stop thinking about what I'd witnessed. I considered quitting, but I desperately needed the money. Instead, I decided to investigate. During my break, I went to the security office. Linda was reviewing her phone while sipping coffee. "Hi Linda," I said casually. "Are the cameras on aisle 13 working?" She raised an eyebrow. "Why do you ask?" I tried seeming nonchalant. "Just curious. I thought I saw something strange the other night." She shrugged. "Yes, they're working fine. Do you want to see the footage?" I nodded, trying not to reveal my fear. Linda quickly pulled up recordings from my previous shift. At first, everything looked normal. The footage showed me wheeling my cart, walking the aisles, and restocking shelves. Then I saw it. The figure appeared briefly in the corner of the screen before disappearing again. "Did you see that?" I asked urgently, pointing at the screen. "See what?" Linda frowned. I rewound the video carefully. "Right there. That dark thing." Linda squinted at the monitor and shook her head. "Ethan, I don't see anything at all." My stomach dropped. I made the decision right then. I wasn't coming back that night. Whatever was happening in aisle 13 wasn't normal, and I wasn't going to stay around to discover what it wanted. But that night, despite my resolution, I found myself back at work. The shift started like all others, with me hyper-aware of every sound and movement. At midnight, the lights in aisle 13 began flickering. I stopped dead, gripping my cart handle until my knuckles turned white. The whispers grew louder around me, surrounding me from all directions. Then I saw it again. The thing stepped out from the shadows, its impossibly long limbs reaching out toward me. Its face, or rather its lack of one, was inches from mine. I felt a cold, oppressive presence encompassing me, squeezing the air from my lungs. After that moment, I don't remember much. I woke up in the break room with Linda and Greg standing over me, looking concerned. They said they'd found me unconscious in aisle 13, lying on the floor and mumbling incoherently. That evening, I quit my job. Honestly, I don't want to know what I encountered in aisle 13. I just know that Walmart isn't a place meant for the living after dark. If you ever find yourself working the night shift there, stay alert and keep your eyes open. Avoid the shadows at all costs. You never know what might be lurking there, waiting patiently in the darkness for someone like you.